Hi, everyone. It's Tessa.
And Joe.
From the Unveiling Paradise podcast.
Tessa, summer is almost here, and so many of our listeners are about to have their epic destination wedding.
And we are so excited for you guys.
Before the big day, guys, we want you to make sure you listen to these 3 episodes.
Episode 62, Deep Diving Your Wedding Ceremony.
Episode 53, Questions Your Wedding Guests Will Ask.
And episode 31, The Final Countdown to Your Wedding Day.
And if you're planning your wedding here in Hawaii, hit us up and ask us about our Unveiling Paradise podcast promo.
Happy planning. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Unveiling Paradise podcast. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Tessa. You sound so chipper today. What's going on?
I'm excited today. We are talking about 2 of my favorite things.
What are
Maybe 3.
All right. Okay. Let's go for it.
We're going to be talking about interviewing people.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about wedding planning.
Okay. What's
and
number
I
3?
feel like we're going to talk about me.
I thought you were going to say you were going to talk about cake.
Not this episode, although we haven't talked about cake.
So that's your number 4 favorite thing.
That
okay,
would be 4, but today we're going to do top 3.
Okay, let's jump into this. So we're talking about, actually more specifically, interviewing you, Tessa, a wedding planner.
Yeah.
Is that right? If I was a bride or groom planning my wedding, how the heck would I interview a wedding planner? Like, how would I know you're the right fit? Like, what are the questions I would ask you? What are the things I should be asking you? So I think this is the point of our show today is when you're thinking about hiring a wedding planner, where do you even start? When you're about to get on a phone call, like, what are the key questions you should be asking to find that perfect fit for your wedding day?
Exactly. And I get that a lot. You know, when I first talk to couples, they're like, I don't even know where to start. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be asking you. So I think that's what we want to talk about today. When you meet with wedding planners, when you start interviewing, what are the things that you should be thinking about and what should you be asking us?
Because all wedding planners are not created the same, right?
We're all different.
Yeah. So let's get into today's show.
Welcome to Unveiling Paradise, your go-to destination wedding podcast. I'm Tessa, wedding planner and owner of Fred & Kate Events.
And I'm Joe, wedding and adventure photographer of Joseph Esser Photography. We are based in Hawaii, one of the biggest, most popular locations for destination weddings.
We want to share our real-life experiences with you, give you insight from a professional's perspective, and still make sure you're having fun in the process.
We're huge believers in the fact that planning a destination wedding can be one of the most amazing experiences, and we want to bring you along.
We're so excited to talk with you about weddings, Hawaii, and everything else under the sun.
So pack your bags and let's get started.
All right, everyone, welcome back to our show. Today, we are going to be talking about hiring a wedding planner. So I think today's show is really about how to prepare yourself when you're lining up meetings to interview your potential wedding planners for your wedding day. Where should I start? I think this is kind of a reverse interview, right? But what should I bring to that initial meeting?
Joe, before we get into all of the details of, what you should be asking, I want to take a step back and it's counterintuitive, I guess, but I always tell couples you should be meeting with more than one person, more than one planner.
Sounds like you're a horrible salesperson.
I'm a horrible salesperson, I know, which is probably not the smartest thing, but I truly believe, your wedding planner is going to be with you throughout the whole planning process. Her and her team or, this person will be with you all day on your wedding. If you don't vibe together, if you don't trust that they understand your vision, it's going to be a hard process the entire time. So I really think it's important that even if she comes with top accolades, even if, you love all of the awards that I've won or the things that I've done, or you like my work on social media, if you don't like me personally, or if you don't feel like I understand what you want, or if you don't think I understand your vision, it's not going to be a great fit.
Can you think of anyone else at a wedding that has more hands-on time with a couple leading up to that wedding and on the day of the wedding than
no one.
A wedding coordinator?
There's no one. And I think that's why it's really, and you know this too, Joe, is I always tell people you should vibe with your photographer, vibe with your videographer. They're there all day too. But if you take that and then you add the months and months of wedding planning beforehand, if we don't get along, it's going to be really tough.
Totally. I have to jump in with a very awkward example. I have known a client of mine who actually fired their coordinator halfway through their wedding planning process. They just weren't getting along. They weren't seeing eye to eye. They weren't communicating well. It became this situation where they didn't like each other anymore.
Right.
And they reached out to me and they say, hey, how do you think we should handle this? Because we've spent so much time with them. They've planned, this huge, how do we transition out of that? And I think if they had really gotten to know that coordinator's personality, the way that they work, understanding their workflow and their communication and all those things at the very front of the wedding, things would have been very different.
And here's the thing is, I think that happens, not a lot, but it happens, right? Because again, as you start getting closer and closer to your wedding, the stakes get higher. If you realize that you're still not a good fit, it's not getting better, it's going to be hard. It's tough, right? And I think the wedding planner wants to do a good job. They want to do whatever they can, but if you just never click, it's not going to get better on your wedding day. It's not going to get better. So it doesn't make sense to have that conversation. Or again, sometimes it just takes a course correct, and that's totally doable, right? Like any relationship, there's a little bit of give and take. So it's just figuring out what that looks like, but it happens. It really happens. And that's why from the very beginning, meet with a couple people, just really make sure that the person that you're picking is the best fit for you and your fiance and your wedding day.
So you want to like the person first before you fall in love with their services and their paperwork.
You're looking at their services and paperwork online. So you already have an idea of what they do, but I think getting to know them as a person is equally as important.
Your wedding coordinator is there the entire day, right? They are there at all the different points leading up to your wedding day. I think we said this before in a previous episode. A coordinator is really like a conductor of the orchestra, making sure that everything plays in harmony. I think that's so true. I've seen weddings from so many different perspectives as a photographer when we work with your company, for example, another company, and maybe a horrible wedding coordinating company. And it is true. If you don't have a strong conductor that the couple is gelling with at the very beginning, that can command the attention of all the other vendors and all of the other guests in a way that is comfortable, oh my gosh, it's just a nightmare.
Exactly. And it's not just the vendors. It's really being able to manage your wedding party, your guests, right? Getting everybody where they need to be at the right time. It's a skill. Getting them to do what you want without offending them, also a skill, right? And I think it's understanding that I'm one person. I bring a team with me because, and I know I've told you this multiple times, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. I know I'm not perfect. On the wedding day, I have told you no more times than you want to hear during your wedding planning. So I will bring my team and they're happy and they're going to tell you yes and everything's perfect. And I think it changes the energy. It keeps it high versus having just me there. So again, we're really looking at trying to manage all aspects of your wedding day, but still with a way that you feel very supported and loved and happy.
All right. Well, I'm already sold about having a wedding planner. So I'm having a wedding. I'm definitely going to have a wedding planner. Before I actually meet and start doing those interviews, what homework should I be doing? Like if you were to give me like homework on how to hire a wedding planner 101, like what should I start with?
Sure. So when couples meet with me, a lot of times they have absolutely nothing at all. And I think what's helpful is, have some basic information. Budget is a big one. And I know a lot of people don't have a budget at all at this point because they're like, well, it depends what things cost. Or I have no idea, but have an idea. Is it $20,000? Is it $200,000? Is it $2 million? General range.
2 billion.
2 billion, whatever it is, right? As long as there's a general range to see what's realistic. If you're looking at a venue and the venue space alone is more than your whole budget, then that's not going to work, right? So we need a general idea of what you want to spend. Guest count, right? Because that will affect a lot of venue spaces. If you're looking at 20 people or 200, that will affect the space. Where can you get married? Preferred wedding date, again, right? If we're already booked, it's hard to work together. It's not impossible, but if you are set on a certain date, if you've already said, you know what, this is the date that we started dating, this is the date that we have our anniversary, we cannot change it, then state that up front to make sure that this planner is available. and then an ideal vision. And again, it doesn't have to be exactly it, and there's definitely room for change, but what are you looking for, right? This ties into budget. If you want to have draping chandeliers, you're flying in a band, you're flying in, a photographer from halfway across the world, this will affect your budget. So what are you looking for so the planner can see, is this realistic? Is this something that they can do for you, right? All we want to do is make sure that we can understand your vision, understand your budget, and help you make it happen. We need all that information to see if this is something that we can do for you.
And I love that because, like, from my perspective as a photographer, like, when we are actually meeting with most of our couples, they've already locked in their venue. They've locked in their date. So, Tessa, just to recap, then before anyone actually sets up a phone call, this is what you want them to have pre-prepared for that phone call. Otherwise, it's really hard to have this conversation. Like, do I choose you as a coordinator if I haven't done any of that homework before yet?
Exactly. It's not impossible. And I've definitely met with couples that have no information, no idea, and they were, just still really happy. They're like, we like your vibe. We think that you're going to be perfect. We're in. And that's fine too, right? For me, it's just how do I best set you up for success when we're working through your wedding planning? So having those things in mind, having a budget, having your guest count, wedding date, vision, it's helpful. It's not required, but it is a big start in making sure that we can set you on the right path.
Just curiously, how many couples actually come to you with none of this information? They don't have a venue. They don't have a date in mind. It's just like an empty canvas.
Probably about 50%.
They
just don't know.
Yeah.
Because I think we're at this point now where wedding planning is so early in the stages where the first thing you know is they're like, okay, we're getting married in Hawaii. We have no idea what we want. We better find a wedding planner to help guide us, which is great.
And I actually love that. We've talked about this a lot. A lot of times if you're booking your planner first, they can guide you in all of the right directions. So if they say, we want to do an outdoor venue, don't look at this one because you're way over budget. But maybe think about these different options. When you start planning with a planner, everything changes. I love that as a first step. All right, Tessa, I am ready for my phone call with you. I've done all my homework. I've got an idea of my budget. I have my date in mind. It's kind of loose right now, but I have some great ideas that I want to talk with you about.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's go through what we think are some key questions that you want to get answers from your wedding coordinator. Okay, I'm Joey the bride.
Perfect.
I'm ready to start planning. First off, I think this is a crucial one. Is my date available?
Right. So 2 things, right? Number 1, when couples come to me, they may have their date or they may not. And if they do, that's perfect. If they've booked a venue, they have their date, it's good for us to figure out, am I even available, right? Because if I'm not, then that's kind of off the table already and we have to move on. If they don't have a date yet, what's helpful is, are they flexible to change their date or can we work together to pick a date? A lot of times for me, right, it's you have your inner circle of people that you'll change the date for no matter what. Your immediate family, your best friend. You're going to work with a small group of people, a small circle, to find that date. When you book your wedding planner, before you book your date, then your wedding planner becomes part of that inner circle. So we're just working together to figure out, does this date work for all of us?
But a lot of times you might start out, maybe not with a specific date, but you have like a month in mind, or maybe it's just a season. I'm going to do a summertime wedding, or I'm going to do a fall wedding, or whatever it might be. And then you can kind of work with, you said that inner circle, right? That inner circle to figure out what makes sense for our family. Does it fit with the wedding planner that I've fallen in love with, or the venue that I've fallen in love with? Does that make sense?
Right. And I think, you're talking about seasons and you're talking about general dates. And I think that's something to consider too, right? When you're looking at the date and when we're meeting with a wedding planner, figuring out the date, right? What time of year are you trying to do it when it's sunny the whole time? A lot of couples have this vision of these cafe lights. If the sun is up till 7, 8 o'clock at night, you're not going to get that same effect as, after ceremony, the sun goes down and you have those kind of cafe lights the whole day. So what time of year do you want to do it? What's the weather going to be like, right? We're in Hawaii, so we're lucky. The weather is great all year round. But if you're in another country or state where it's cold sometimes and snowy, and then it's sunny and hot, that's going to affect your planning. That's going to affect your date. Same thing with sunset, right? Do you want those gorgeous photos, when is it going to happen on your wedding day? And so the date really does matter. When you're talking with a wedding planner, figuring out those dates is an important part of the starting process.
Yeah, and I think about like a place like Arizona. Summertime in Arizona, horrible time to do a wedding. Nobody does weddings there.
Is it?
It is because it's
Why?
120 degrees, right?
Oh.
You know, you'll be inside the entire time. But the fall, the spring, that's when they have all their weddings because it's nice and cool in the evenings, beautiful weather throughout the day. A place like Hawaii, we're kind of blessed with the fact that we have beautiful weather year-round. So it's really more about scheduling, I think, a lot of times. Is summer better when kids are out of school? Or is the fall better when kids are in school and they can't be at the wedding?
Have a daytime wedding when the kids are in school. It's perfect.
Yeah, hey, there you go.
And, Joe, and to your point, I have a lot of couples where one of them may be a teacher. So you're planning around their work schedule. If they have all of summer off, why would they plan it in the middle of fall when they're busy with work, right? If you know you have June, July off, they plan it around that time. So a lot of the planning, the wedding will be based on their schedules. Accountants, right? I think April, is that tax time?
Yeah, you don't want to plan it. That's when they're pulling their hair
No, they're
out.
busy. So why would you do it around those times, right? Or I have couples that are in residency and they're like, okay, as soon as we're done, wedding's happening, right? So a lot of it is kind of based on their jobs and lives too. So we're balancing all of that. And I think that is something that you should be talking about with your planner when you're interviewing them to see, will this work for them too?
Totally. And again, we have a whole episode about like choosing a date. I know we've talked about this before. I think if you're bringing a date to your wedding planner, you haven't booked something yet, and they're like, oh my gosh, you've booked February 4th, 2024, which is 2424, which
I
is
love
going to be
that.
a popular date. You know
So
it's going to be.
popular.
And every single vendor is going to be booked, and you're going to be fighting with people. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times they'll say, what about like not choosing a super popular date? And you're not going to be fighting with other couples to lock in your favorite vendors. So you have my date available, or you're willing to work with me to find a date. I love this. Okay, I'm liking our conversation. So far, you're my top pick for a coordinator.
Perfect.
You got my date available.
Yep,
That's a
I'm
start.
available.
It's a really important place to start. This is one question that I know we have spent a lot of time on, but it's always so confusing to our couples. As a wedding planner, what services do you offer? There's so much diversity in terms of what wedding planners offer in terms of services and how much they're going to be holding your hand through the process or what they're going to be doing on the actual wedding day itself. So let's talk about that. We can do a quick breakdown into what are the services.
Sure. So, it's one of those things where, like you said, every wedding coordinator has a different description for what they do. So when you're meeting with different planners, you don't want to just ask them, hey, what's your full service planning? What's your day of planning? Because you're not necessarily comparing apples to apples. I think what's really helpful is on the flip side for you to understand, what do you need? What are you looking for? And start a conversation from there. For example, my partial planning might be someone's full service, or it might be someone's day of planning. Just the way that we are defining it might be different.
Okay, so start with what do you need as a couple in terms of that support. Let's break this down, though. I just want to just quickly go through this. There's a spectrum. Full planning, partial planning, day of, and then just waving when you pass a couple on the side of the road. Right? There's a huge array of different services. So the full planning, just quickly walk us through what that means.
Sure. And again, I want to emphasize the fact that my full service planning is going to be different from another coordinator's full service planning. So it's really, when you speak to them, understanding and asking them what it includes.
Right.
For example, some of them in their full service planning, it includes planning their rehearsal dinner the day before, their farewell party the day after, so it's all inclusive. Some may include, invitation design or custom designs for their signage. Some don't. So again, full service planning, just like partial, just like day of, will mean something different for every single planner. For us, it includes obviously, just a lot of hand-holding. So helping you book your vendors, create your design, create your layout, create the vision for your wedding, and obviously be there every step of the way with you through your vendor process, through your planning process, right? It's very hands-on. We're there throughout the whole time. Your vendors will come to us from the very beginning if they have any questions. And that's how we like it. We want to be involved in every step of the way. Again, other planners might be more full service, others may be less. So my takeaway for this, when you're interviewing, ask specifically what it includes and understand on your end what you need. You don't want to pay for services. If you're not doing a welcome dinner, then you don't need to have a planner that's going to plan that for you as well. Or if you can manage that by yourself, then you don't need to have that as an added expense.
Okay, perfect. And then I just want to touch on this last one. Day of, month of coordination. What is that? Just wrap it up in a nice bow for me. I'm like trying to figure this all out.
Sure. So the day of, month of coordination, really it switches from planning to coordination. So at that point, this person is managing your logistics. Do you have a timeline? If not, they will likely help you with that. Do you have a layout? If not, they'll help you with that. Wrapping up all the final details with your vendors. What time is your photographer arriving? How many hours do you have them for? What time are they finishing? Are you feeding them? If so, vendor meals, a buffet, so just all of those little details. Again, I want to be clear. It's also understanding that you and I both know some day of coordinators who don't create timelines, which is okay. But again, it's really understanding what does that include? What does their service include?
I have one more question for you. And I think this is something that is tricky. What is the difference between an in-house coordinator and a wedding coordinator?
Some venues like hotels have catering managers. Sometimes they're also referred to as in-house coordinators. It's understanding that there is a difference between that and a day of coordinator. So whenever you have an in-house hotel concierge or the wedding planner in-house, their priority or their job is to manage the hotel-related things. So your food and beverage, your layout for, again, what the hotel is providing, tables, chairs, forks, plates, glassware. You still would likely need a day of planner to help you with the miscellaneous things, the things that aren't coming from the hotel, your centerpieces, your favors, menu cards, anything that's not part of the hotel would be part of your day of coordinator. And so I think people will often get them confused, or when they're talking to me, they're saying, hey, you know what, my hotel actually has an in-house coordinator. I don't think I need this. And for me, I always say, go talk to them and see what they provide. Because again, even though the titles may be similar or even sometimes the same, what they're providing is very different.
Absolutely. And I see that happen a lot where they might think that the role for the in-house coordinator is what a full-service wedding planner would do, and it's not. And it leads to, I think, a lot of frustration and disappointment where I say, why aren't you helping? Well, that's not my job, right? That's not in my description. This makes sense, right? If you have an in-house coordinator, you can still hire a wedding planner.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. And another example is a lot of churches have an in-house coordinator. They have their church coordinator. So that person is the one that's managing the actual Catholic ceremony, for example. But they still want you to have a wedding coordinator because they want to make sure that we get them there on time, that they weren't drinking beforehand, we line them up, that they have, all of the ceremonial pieces that they want, the flowers for the flower girl. So they still want us to coordinate the logistics. They're there to run the actual ceremony during the church service, during the Catholic ceremony. But the before and after, they're still heavily relying on you to have a wedding coordinator for your day of.
Okay, this is super confusing. Now we have 3 coordinators in the room. All right.
You're going to have a lot of coordinators.
I need them all.
You will need them all.
All right, perfect. You're doing well so far on my interview.
Thank you.
So, I am also on a budget. I wish I could spend $1 million, but I don't have that. So is this a question I can ask you? Like, here's my budget, Tessa. Like, I only have $30,000 to spend on my wedding. I only have $3,000 to spend on my wedding. When I'm meeting with you, can I put that on a plate and serve it to you? And you can say, yeah, I can work with this, or no, like there's no way you're going to be able to do what you want to do.
I think that's a really important question to ask because there are planners where they have minimums. You have to have a certain wedding budget in order for them to work with you. So if that's the case, you don't want to waste your time and hide your budget or keep it a secret. You're going to be going through this long process with them, really getting to know them and liking them, and then realizing, we can't afford to work with them. So I do think being upfront, if you know that your budget's very tight, or if you know that you're not going to be able to go any past this number, I think it's very important to let them know that so they can prepare and you can just be honest and upfront with each other.
I think everybody has a minimum, right? I think every coordinator has a minimum. If your budget is $1,000 and their services start at $1,500.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a minimum.
Everyone's got a minimum.
Right. Okay, another question that I think is really relevant. I think it's really important. If I'm working with you, can you help negotiate pricing for some things? Are there things that as a wedding planner, let's say you're doing full service planning, can you help me get a better deal because I am working directly with you?
Yeah, so that's a good question.
Is it a weird question?
I don't, you know, here's the thing. I think with money, people get really weird where they don't want to ask or they don't want to embarrass themselves. But I always tell people it's better to ask. And so for me, when you're asking about discounts or negotiating pricing, that is something that planners can do. Not all planners, but for example, with me, I'm happy to reach out to vendors and say, hey, you know, we're getting married on a Tuesday morning. Like, is this something that you'd be willing to offer my client a discount? Or if we have great relationships, a lot of them will automatically offer discounts. So again, working with a planner that has relationships with vendors that can work with you definitely can help you with your overall budget.
And let's talk about this. We're talking about money. I know that a lot of wedding planners deal with money, how they actually get paid differently than one another, right? So some have a flat fee. If you're doing full planning services with a company, it's a flat fee, right? It's X amount of dollars. Yeah. Some it's based on a percentage type structure. So if you're planning a $100,000 wedding, their fee is a percent of whatever that overall spend is, that budget is. Explain that to me. I don't really quite understand. I think I understand it, but explain it to me.
Sure. So it's, you know, it's just like any other business. Everyone gets paid in a different way. So when you're interviewing your wedding planner, what you want to do is figure out how are you getting paid? Is it a flat structure? Is it commission-based? Is it percentage-based? Some of them are hourly, so it's an hourly base. So again, however they get paid, you just want to make sure that you understand that. If you're spending $100,000 on your wedding and they're taking a 15% commission or percentage, that's $15,000. That's fine, but you want to factor that into your budget. You want to understand what the expectation is so you're not surprised at the end. I know a lot of couples like having one flat fee because they can add it to their spreadsheet, they can add it to their budget, and it's set. It doesn't change. But if your guest count goes up, if you upgrade your decor, then the payment may go up. So you just want to be aware that it could be a sliding scale based on how much you spend.
And something that you shared with me that makes sense, and I didn't really quite wrap my head around that whole payment structure, but it's kind of like a real estate agent. You buy a house, depending on how expensive your house is, that real estate agent takes a commission. It might be 3%, it might be 40%, whatever it is. Hopefully not 40.
I don't know either.
Right? But that's just another way that people probably evaluate how much work they're going to put into a wedding. If it's a $30,000 wedding, I'm assuming it's probably going to be a lot less work than a $300,000 wedding.
So honestly, and this is kind of, quick stories. When I bought my house, I remember thinking, we spent a lot of money. We're putting all this money down. And I'm like, and I remember talking to my husband and I'm like, when are we paying the real estate agent? Like, I don't know how we paid her. She didn't give us a bill. And so finally, I think I asked her, like, how do we pay you? And she was like, oh, it's part of the house, right? When you buy the house, it's a commission. So she gets some, the buyer gets some, everyone, it's part of the whole process. I had no idea. I think it's like that with a wedding. It's some wedding planners, it's built into your total budget. Some, it's a flat fee. All we're saying is when you're interviewing planners, find out how you are getting paid. How are you paying this planner?
Sometimes weddings are like buying a house or even more expensive than buying a house.
I know. It's overwhelming. So again, ask the questions. Money shouldn't be something that you are embarrassed to talk about from the very start.
The next question for me, I think, is this. What will the wedding planning process actually look like when we get started planning? I'm hiring you on, like when we actually get into the meat and potatoes of planning this wedding, what is it actually like for you if I'm working with you?
So I think that's a good question. And I think that's a very important question. A lot of times I will have couples that ask, what is the best form of communication, right?
So important.
Right. Do you do better by email? Do you do better by phone calls or Zoom, text? What does it look like when I'm communicating with you? And also how often? There are some planners where you can talk to them or maybe up until 2 months out, it's only by email, no phone calls, no Zoom, no other communication. Or, some wedding planners, you don't get their phone number until a week or two before the wedding. Does that work for you? Again, there's no right or wrong. As long as you understand what you need, right? Going into this interview, understand what you need out of a planner. I've had couples where they meet and they're like, listen, I'm going to be very honest. We're very needy. We're going to need to meet all the time. We're going to need X, Y, and Z. And I love that because I know what the expectation is. If they need to meet weekly, then we make sure that we give them a package that accommodates that. If they're like, listen, we don't need to talk to you. We're only by emails. We're once a month and we're good. then great. But I think it really is important when you're interviewing a wedding planner, it has to be a good fit for what you want and what they can provide.
And that's really true. We just had a wedding together. It was full service planning with you. And the couple didn't want to do anything. They just wanted to show up at their big day and party their butts off.
That's all they wanted.
Right. And they wanted everything. They wanted you to put it all together for them. And they were over the top. Like, you hit their vision, like, across the board. And I think for some of our couples, that's exactly what they want. They just want to show up, have everything done for them. On the opposite side of the spectrum, I know that, like, a lot of times we're trying to schedule this show. You have 4 other Zoom calls planned for the day, and your couples want to go through all the fine print and all the nitty-gritty details of their wedding, and there's weekly check-ins, so, like, I think that's really important. Like, what involvement do you want to have with your wedding planner? Is it a good fit?
Exactly. And again, every wedding planner has a different capacity of what they will provide to their couple. So if you are I need a weekly check-in by phone every week, you better make sure before you sign that contract that your planner is willing to do that, because not everybody is.
How do I know that you're a professional? I think this is always a tricky thing, because there's a million coordinators or individuals who call themselves wedding planners. But how do you know they're actually legit and great at what they do? Can you ask that? Like, can you ask, are you part of a professional trade organization or a wedding organization? Or how do I know I'm working with somebody who actually knows how to plan a big event like mine?
So this is a tricky question, because unlike being a doctor or a lawyer, there's no certification or test that you have to take to become a wedding planner. Anyone can be a wedding planner, and I think that's why there's so many of them. When you're looking for wedding planners, you obviously want to look for someone who has been in the business for a while. If they're on preferred vendor list, I think that is a great testimony to them. If they work with a lot of vendors that you are talking with and they are recommending them as well, same thing. They've built their reputation in this industry. One other step, right? Again, there's not necessarily a certification or a test to take to be a wedding planner, but there are a lot of wedding trade organizations. Are they involved? And the reason why this is important, right, is, do they know what's happening in their industry? Do they know what's happening in the world around them in weddings? Are there things that are affecting weddings that you should be aware of?
We actually have a story to talk about.
We do?
It's a little bit of gossip, I think.
What's the story?
Well, this was a client that was talking with yourself and with a few other coordinators, and I got to talk to them because they were looking at me for a photo and everything. One of the coordinators was promising something that wasn't even possible.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And so, like, if you're not really connected in the industry and you're saying, oh, yeah, we can totally do that, but you can't, oh, my goodness. And this was about trying to book a venue that was no longer open. It's been closed,
Exactly. And that's the thing, right, is if you're not part of an organization, or if you're not connected with your industry, or you being the wedding planner, I may not know everything, so I think it's really important to be involved in whatever way you can through trade organizations, versus necessarily, again, as a wedding planner, there are no requirements or barriers to entry to take a test or to be officially licensed, if you will.
Well, and this is something that you said, and I wanted just to say it better for you.
Thank you.
You said anybody can be a wedding planner. I don't think just anybody can be an excellent wedding planner, right? That's something that takes experience. It takes being connected to your community of vendors and venues and just having a pulse on that industry. Not everyone can do that. Anyone might be able to say, I'm a wedding planner or a photographer, right? It happens all the time. But
it's true.
Are you excellent at planning a wedding? Are you an excellent photographer? And I think that's a question when you're walking in to interview a potential planner, like, can they? Are they that thing that they say they are? Okay, here's one more question for you. And I think this is something that can be good or bad. How long have you been in business? Is that something I can ask you? Is that something that's relevant to your skill set as being an excellent wedding planner?
That's a good question. And when I get that question, it's often followed by the next question with, how many weddings have you done? Or how many weddings did you do this year? And I think it's funny because I think it can go both ways, or it can be good or bad, where I'm always questioning myself, where if I tell people how long I've been in business, do they think I'm old or irrelevant or is it a positive where, again, like, I've had so much experience. I look at a lot of newer planners and they, a lot of these things you cannot plan for every single crazy thing to happen. The longer you're in this industry, the more you've seen. We've been through, again, COVID, just crazy weather, crazy everything, right? And that comes with years of experience. The other question that a lot of people ask is how many weddings you've done. And again, I always question myself, have I done too many? Have I done too little? And it's funny because I think someone just recently asked me that. And this has been an unprecedented year in terms of busyness because COVID shut down, we've reopened, we've rescheduled. It's been a crazy year for every wedding vendor I know. So whenever people ask me that, I get nervous and I'm like, okay, but let me justify, let me explain why. And I talk about how we are busy. I have a big team. I do a lot of give back, but that's what makes me who I am. And they were like, oh, no, we were just wondering because I guess they interviewed someone before me who did 3 weddings this year. And she's like, oh.
Right.
So for her, having too little was a negative. I was taking it as if I did too many, she thought I'd be too busy to help her. She was on the flip side where she was like, oh, that person, she hasn't done enough weddings to understand what I need or she's not that experienced. So anyway, I think it can go both ways. The main thing is when you're asking the question, ask the why behind it.
I like that, the why. Also, it establishes if they're professional or not. If they have only done 3 weddings an entire year, they're probably not doing this full time. It's not their day-to-day. They're not focused on it every single day of the year. And that matters. What about experience in terms of a venue, right? So have you ever worked at the venue that I'm thinking about? Like, is that a question that I should be asking you?
Sure. So I get that question a lot, and I think that's a great question because if you're working with a vendor that has worked at this venue before, if they are on the preferred vendor list, for example, it really tells you that they know that property inside and out. They understand all the little nuances. They have great relationships, for example, at certain hotels with the banquet captain. So they know that your wedding planner will be able to help you through a lot of things that someone coming from the outside may not know, right? If you are at an outdoor venue, a lot of times if they have a great relationship, they will be allowed to break down a little later or set up a little earlier or, hey, I need you to unlock this gate because the cows are coming in, whatever else it is. They have easier access to the venue managers, the site managers, than someone who has never done a wedding there before.
Right. So if you work at a venue all the time, you probably have their cell phone versus like trying to figure out how do I get in touch with them on an email or something weird.
Exactly. And, one thing that we've always said before is one of the biggest benefits of a wedding planner in general is their secret cell phone list, right? We have the direct line to so many people, and it's our networks that make us valuable to you as a client.
Can I see that list? Will
No,
you share it with
no,
me?
no. No. It'll cost you. Fine, I'll show you.
All right. Okay, I want to just turn back to this one thing, scope of work. I think this is so confusing. Like if I'm booking you for partial, does the proposal that you send me itemize, like you can expect this many hours of phone calls or you can expect, like break that down for me.
So that would be the goal. You find someone that you love and you really want to work with them. Ideally, you want to have a very detailed scope of work of what's included and what's not. Because again, just like everything else, every relationship in life, your expectation might be different from theirs. So it's really understanding what's included, what's not. And again, what are the things that are important to you? If you know that you want to have nonstop communication, that should be in your scope of work. If you know that, as a bride, you want your wedding planner to do your hair and makeup throughout the day to touch up, a lot of Asian wedding planners will do that. Not necessarily all. So if that's what you want, you should make sure that it is in the scope of work. Because the last thing you want is on the wedding day or as you're leading up to the wedding day to realize that you booked someone that's not going to provide the services that you expected. Then everyone's going to be set up for disappointment. So really trying to figure out what's included, what's not. Is the rehearsal included? What about the rehearsal dinner? What about multiple calls throughout the day? What are the things that are included? Is it in the scope of work? Is it in the contract? So you understand before you sign with this person.
Well, that was a pleasant phone call with you. I'm definitely considering, but I'm going to take your advice and I'm going to talk to 2 other coordinators.
As you should.
Because I think we're vibing, but I don't know. Like maybe I'm going to have ultra vibes with somebody else. And
Totally.
I should find that out, right?
Yeah, you should.
But I like you. I think I'm going to hire you right now. I'm feeling good. Okay. After my phone call with you, let's talk about this. If you're meeting with different vendors, how did you feel? How did you think that they got your vision? Did they understand the things that you're most excited about for your big day? Let's talk about that. Like after the phone call, I think this is a really key part of making that decision.
Right. So, in an ideal world, when I meet with a couple, I've met with both partners. Sometimes only one's on the call, and I think it's a lot harder because then I'm always thinking, what if the other person doesn't like me? What if I don't mesh with them? So post phone call, if the couple or Zoom or whatever we did, if the couple met with me together, what I would love for them to do is sit down, have a conversation with each other, and just kind of go through some thoughts, right? Like, did they feel heard? Did we vibe, right? Did we get along? Did you feel like we all understand each other's vision? Do you feel like I can do a good job and help you with your budget? If you're like, hey, this is my budget, do you think I can work with that? Did I give you weird vibes? Do you like what I had to say, or did you already kind of get turned off by me? Because all of those things should be a collective decision between the three of us, right? I always tell people, while the couple is interviewing me, I'm doing the same. We all have to get along in order for us to trust each other and trust that we will execute your wedding day, knowing that we will do everything we can to make it as amazing as possible.
I love the show today. I think it is so important to go into all of your interviews with all the vendors you're thinking about with some pre-thought out questions. Does that person get my vision? What is my vision to start out with? And does that person get my vision? Does that person have my date available, right? Don't go into an interview not having those questions already answered for yourself. You're not going to get anywhere.
Honestly, these are such good questions. And again, if every couple came in with solid questions, and again, I try to talk about these things, right? But if they have an idea of what they want, if they come prepared and I can answer questions and we vibe, we're set. So I'm so thankful that we got to talk about this today. I'm super stoked. I hope that people learned a little something. I hope that couples, take our advice and really find a planner that's a great fit for you.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and we will catch you guys on another show.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Unveiling Paradise.
If you enjoy our show, please follow us and rate us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would really mean a lot.
And don't forget to also get on our mailing list and follow us on Instagram. Just do it already.
Until next time, this is Tessa.
And this is Joe.
And don't forget, your happily ever after
is just a plane ride away.